Let's welcome Mr. Parminder Singh Bhasin to lead the virtual session on Part 1, Ensuring Compliance, Analyzing Part Drug Recalls and Their Impact. And he will continue a session on Part 2, Ensuring Compliance, Essential Documentation Practices for Analytical R&D and QC.
So, after a heavy lunch break, welcome back to the third annual Pharma Impurity Conclave 2025. First, at the outset, I should thanks Guneet, the managing director of EBM, the whole team of EBM who worked very hard for this event, in the back end, especially Dheeraj, Abhay, Sally, and the entire team, Zia and all, not to name a few of them. So I should thank for this opportunity to all of you. So I hope you had a good lunch, right? So let's kick off. Okay, I'll be taking this session on ensuring compliance, analyzing past drug recalls and their impact. The focus area of my presentation will be learning from the past case studies to build the resilient plans, unlearning and relearning some of the recalls by the root cause analysis, RCA, which is very important, and how it has impacted the current guidelines, regulatory structure, real lifetime examples of the drug recalls, the pattern of the US FDA drug recalls, the hidden risk, and the proposed solutions, which is most important going forward, how to handle the drug recalls or minimize the risk of drug recalls. I think Dheeraj has already given a good short introduction about myself, so I'll not brief again. But I've been into, yes, method development, core analytical research, R&D, and the GMP, which is stability, analytical method transfers, compliance, US FDA audits, and remediations all over across with kappa management and SOP management. Yeah. Okay, so I know after lunch it's a slightly monotonous session. I'll not take too long, but I'll try to make it interesting. We have some polls. We have some ice-breaking, pictures in between, just to make the session more interactive and more interesting. So definitions about drug recall. Recall is an effective method of removing or correcting consumer products that are in violation of the law administered by the Food and Drug Administration. I'm specifically now with respect to the US FDA. So recall is a voluntary action that may take place because of manufacturers, distributors carrying out the responsibility to protect the public health, which is very important, and well-being from the finished product or drug products that present a risk of injury or gross deception or otherwise which are defective in their use. So that's a crisp definition. Just to simplify the definition, so basically this is a voluntary action or taken by the US FDA, basically with the support of manufacturers and distributors to protect the public health in case any drug product which has already been commercialized in the US market or any global market, for example, if it has any defects or any potency challenges, stability challenges, contamination challenges, that has to be taken back from the market. So this is all about a simplified version of drug recall. So recall is an alternate to the FDA initiation of court action for removing and correcting the violative distributed products if these products are already in the market, commercial market, US and globally, by set forth specific recall procedures which have been set by the FDA to monitor the recalls and assess the adequacy of the firm's effort in a recall. Moving on. Just a brief flavor about introduction of, because why we have been discussing about a lot of ICH guidelines, their remediation action, method developments. We have been talking about analytical quality by designs, OS and OOTs and all those things. Now, specifically with that background, it is now important once the drug is commercialized or once we get the FDA approval, the drug reaches the market from the manufacturing site into the distributors, retailers, pharmacies, and then if any defect is observed at the manufacturing location or at the analytical labs during the stability testing or during the life cycle of the product, then it's important to recall back this finished product from the market, and there should be a system, there's a systematic procedure available as defined by US FDA, how to recall them. So recall may be undertaken voluntarily, obviously by the manufacturers or distributor themselves, or it can be done at the request of Food and Drug Administration, both ways. A request by the FDA that firm recalls a product is reserved for very urgent situations and is directed to the firm, the manufacturing organization or the firm that has primary responsibility for the manufacture and marketing of the product that is to be recalled. Now, that's very important. The primary responsibility is of the manufacturer or the drug product manufacturer and the distributor that if they have a defective finished product, formulation, device, that has to be immediately recalled from the market, either voluntarily or as per the direction of the FDA once it is identified. Recall is generally more appropriate and afford better protection for consumers than seizures. Obviously, seizures can also be done. Seizures, multiple seizures, court actions can be indicated if the manufacturer or the firm refuses to undertake a recall requested by the FDA, or the agency has a reason to believe that recall would not be effective. Then there can be seizure of the finished product or the drug product from the market, because there is a violation with respect to, or there's a patient safety concern or risk attached to it. Moving on, let's take some live examples from the drug recalls. A lot of theory we have read about, but now I've taken some very recent examples. These are coming from late 2024, somewhere in October 24. So just to not specifically name any particular organizations, they are just randomized taken examples and case studies. Morphine sulfate extended release tablet. Now, this is a narcotic analgesic used for pains, for end stage patients, for pains leading to the cancer patients, or, related surgical traumas. Now, Dr. Reddy's laboratory, a US subsidiary, had a recall for the multiple strengths of morphine extended release tablet because of class 2 recall. I'll come to the class 1, class 2, and class 3 classification in the subsequent slides. This was done in October 2024. And this was primarily because the affected lots in the markets were failing in the impurities or the degradation specifications. So what does it mean? The product which is in the market, which patient is consuming, is actually failing its OS, out of specification results, in the shelf life of the drug product. So impurities are getting consumed by the patients beyond the ICH limits. So this had to call for a recall. Example number 2, case study. FDC had to do a drug recall for timolol maleate ophthalmic solution. Now, this is a device failure. Why so? This was done somewhere in October 29, 2024. Basically, timolol is used for high pressure, the glaucoma inside the eyeballs, and this was also a class 2 recall. And this was basically because of the defective container, because the patient or the device was unable to get the solution out from the bottle, as a spike of the cap was lodged inside the nozzle of the product bottle. So again, the patient or the user is not able to use the timolol maleate ophthalmic solution to treat glaucoma. So it's a concern or a risk attached to the device malfunction, which is already commercialized or in the market. How to handle that part, or how to understand now this class 2 drug recall? Class 2 drug recall is initiated when the use or exposure of a defective product may cause a temporary or medical, just let me do a pointer option, maybe for easy to understand, may cause a temporary or medical reversible adverse health consequences. The risk of these adverse health can be remote, but US FDA takes such drug recalls very, very seriously to protect the public health. So if timolol ophthalmic solution or morphine extended release tablet are not working as they are specified to be done as per the specifications, or device working, if they're not working as per that, US FDA takes very seriously for immediate drug recall to protect the public health, safety, and avoid any risk to the general public. Why are these drugs getting recalled? Both Dr. Reddy's and FDC have identified the manufacturing issues that could potentially compromise the quality and the safety of the affected products. Now, in this case, either the impurity levels are high, or the dispensing of the bottle for the ophthalmic solution is not happening. That's either the quality issue, safety issue for the impacted products. What should the patients do in this case? The patients who have purchased the recalled drug should immediately contact their healthcare providers, the pharmacist, for guidance. They are advised to return the unused portion of the drug to the pharmacy, or safely dispose the finished product, not further consume it, because they can impact their health. What steps are being taken to prevent the drug recalls? Both the companies, Dr. Reddy's and FDC, have conducted thorough investigations with the root cause analysis related to the manufacturing process issues. They implemented additional quality control measures, which we will take up in the subsequent slides, to prevent similar accidents or incidents in the future. Few other case studies. Now let's look at label mix-up. Now, the same drug, morphine extended release tablet, which I said is narcotic based analgesic used in end stage cancer patients or surgery traumas. There was another case with Bryant Ranch company where one of the product was recalled because they have two strengths, 30 milligram tablet and 60 milligram tablet. Now the label for these tablets were exchanged. So what is the impact? A patient who is supposed to take 30 milligram, he incidentally might be getting 60 milligram, double the dose, because the label has been mixed up between the two bottles. So the high risk is the patient prescribed 30 milligram dose will actually receive 60 milligram of a narcotic analgesic, which is highly, highly potent. And this can risk and lead to overdose, and this can even lead to the death of the patients who's consuming these formulations. And on the contrary, patients who are prescribed 60 milligram shall receive only 30 milligram, half the dose. Can experience withdrawal symptoms, can experience untreated pains. So it's, risk in both the ends. So immediate action taken was FDA reported to the organization, notified the distributors through emails, phones, letters to return all the recalled products and they stop immediate use for the consumers. Another example, this now morphine is quite popular. I don't know why, but I've taken another example from February 2025. This is this year, current year again. Sun Pharma. They had 9,840 bottles for the same tablet getting recalled for failing the dissolution specifications. So understand, it's an extended release tablet formulation. The effect seems to be on extended, for example, 8 to 12 hours. But now it is failing in the dissolution specification means it is a very serious issue. It is not delivering the proper drug delivery and the therapeutic outcome which is supposed to give to the patients. So around 10,000 plus bottles failed in dissolution specification, led to the recall in as late as February 2025. Another example, Zydus. Nelarabine injection had another concern of impurities, where again, it failed the impurity and the degradation products, and it called for recall. And the interesting part is there are two recalls. The first recall was happening in February 2025, and there was a subsequent second recall again in the same month, for the same finished product, and they were around 36,000 bottles plus and around 1,900 bottles or vials, sorry, in this case, because it's an injection formulation which failed in the degradation products, and any injectables failing in impurity profile is a high risk because it is directly intravenously injected across in the patients. So now you understand the impact of the real-time case studies, why drug recalls are really critical, and how the organizations have handled and what are the real case studies. Few examples just to quote you across. Now let's go to the basic classification of the drug recalls. As per the US FDA, recall can be classified as class 1, class 2, and class 3. Now why? What's the difference? Class 1 are the reasonable probability for the use or exposure to the product will cause serious adverse health consequences or even death. So these are the most concerned ones. Any finished product or device falling into this category is having a serious consequences. It has to be immediately recalled back with immediate effect. Class 2, which we've taken the examples in the last few slides, the exposure or violative product may cause temporary or medically reversible adverse health consequences where the probability of the serious health is remote. So it's reversible, it's a temporary, but still it is less risk as compared to class 1, but still it is on the critical path. And obviously the class 3, where the exposure or violative product is not likely to cause serious adverse consequences, but still FDA insists for a recall and for a corrective action for the root cause analysis and finding out across. So class 1, 2, and 3 are indicative of the relative degree of the health hazard of the product getting recalled, which is considered for the recall part. So I've given the references across in each of the slides just for reference purpose. So this is the pyramid. On the top of the pyramid, you see class 1, which has a serious health problem leading to even death, which is the highest risk one. Then the middle part of the pyramid is causing temporary health problem, low in middle in severity, medium risk. And class 3 has a low risk, but unlikely to cause any adverse health, but they still all need for a drug recall procedure as defined by the FDA. Now on the right hand side, what are the top 20 categories for the drug recalls? Now this is very important, and I've highlighted, kept in bold some of the critical ones, which I will be discussing in more details in the subsequent slides. So violation of the CGMP, anything which is not following the good manufacturing practices as per the current guidelines can call for a drug recall. Cause for contamination, cross contamination, there can be n number of things which we'll find in the subsequent slides. Lack of sterility assurance. If you are using an injectable or ophthalmic solution and they're found to be non-sterile, this can immediately lock for a drug recall. Lack of processing controls, microbial contamination of sterile products, out of specification. Now that's also important because quality control is the lab which is responsible for ultimately testing the finished product and releasing for commercial release. So any OS can immediately call for a drug recall. Marketing without a approved NDA or a ANDA, labeling issues which we saw in the previous slides, 30 milligram and 60 milligram getting mixed up. So this can call for a immediate drug recall, which is a concern matter. Presence of particulate matter, any foreign substance, matter, black particles, hair, which is identified in the finished product or in the formulation, which can lead to a drug recall. Subpotent drug, your stability, your assay is falling below, say, 90%. If your specification limit is 90 to 110%, and your assay in the tablet or capsule is below 90% in shelf life or stability, which is subpotent, then it will not deliver the required dosage form. Defective delivery system, like we saw the ophthalmic solution, it was not delivering, it failed. Non-sterility, super potent, higher in the potency, again, even higher potency in the stability or in the release part has to be recalled. Anything beyond 110%, for example, for morphine, can be injurious or can cause severe side effects to the patients. Presence of foreign matters, we saw here, particulate matters. Stability data not supporting the expiry. Defective containers, we saw timolol. Presence of foreign tablet or capsule. So there can be an intermixing of the finished products, tablet and capsules getting mixed, or different dosage forms getting mixed between each other in a blister on a bottle. They have been reported for a recall. Temperature abuse. There's a spike in the temperature, either in the shipment or in the storage at the pharmacies. Incorrect product formulation. Presence of precipitate, either in the injectable formulations or ophthalmic formulations. Product mix-up, which you just saw, 30 and 60 milligram mix-up. So all these are the major 20 categories. There are so many of them, but I've just tried to put the top 20 ones across so that you understand which are the critical attributes which are leading to drug recalls, which we can minimize, and how we can counter those in the lab or in the testing or the manufacturing side. Poll time. It's a lunch time, so let's take a break. So, friends, what are the top 3 drug recalls as per the FDA database? Now, there can be several categories which I've just discussed in the past. I give you some options. You have to just put in 1, 2, and 3, the top 3 ones. It can be contamination or labeling or out of specification, CGMP, sterility, or packaging. I give you 6 options. You have to just put the most top one as per FDA database, the number 1, number 2, and number 3. And this is a database which has been collected for last almost 10 plus years, from 212 to 2023, accounting for around 15,000 plus observations. So as per you, what do you feel would be the most probable cause for a drug recall as per FDA database? The number 1, number 2, and number 3. Any guesses, or should we go for a poll here? I can pause for a few seconds before giving the answer out, or you want to type in your comments. Out of the 6 options, which can be the most probable ones, the top 3?
Yeah, Dr. Parminder, we have published the poll. Okay, so people can actually vote it, and people are voting. So I can tell you the result. I'll give more 20 seconds. So once I have enough votes, I can end the poll and tell you the result. What is it that they have chosen?
Sure.
Okay. I'll be on standby. In the meanwhile, let the people vote. 10 seconds more and I'll close the poll and tell you the result. Yes, I think we have the answers. Perfect. I am closing the poll. Perfect. So around 40% of people have chosen contamination as one of the topmost reason for drug recalls. The 20% around 20% have opted for labeling. 15% have chosen for OOS, and remaining 5% for CGMP, 5% for packaging, and another 15% for sterility. But yeah, maximum vote is for contamination, 40%.
Good. So now the surprise part is, probably I'll go to the answers, the right answer. Yes. The next slide. The top one is sterility. That accounts for almost, more than 50 to 70%. Type 2 is CGMP, the top two. And the third one is out of specifications. So, we sometimes feel that contamination or packaging might be the probable, causes. But no, the major recalls which worldwide across, not only US, Canada, India, globally across, these are the top three categories as per the US FDA database, which have been, I'll show in the subsequent slide the numbers also, which have been identified for the major reasons for the drug recalls. But good attempt from the audience, So this is how the knowledge database we can share across with each other, and we identify what are the basic contributing factors. Okay, break. So this is a picture, a sunrise, at a beach in Da Nang, which is in Vietnam, and just a click from a mobile. I normally do my photography just for my, part-time or as my passion across. So just to share across with you and to, have a digital detox after having so much of ICH sessions and so much of, case studies, probably just to have some detox, digital detox. Yeah. And these are all clicked from a mobile, random clicks by myself. Yeah, just to share across. Okay, moving on. Recall strategy. So what are the different recall strategies as per FDA? So there is a general strategy where the recall strategy takes into account following factors for the particular recall. They take into account the results which can cause to the health hazards by the health hazard evaluation. Is it serious, moderate, mild? Ease in identifying the product, whether they can be easily identified in the pharmacies, distributors, degree to which the product deficiency is obvious to the consumer, how much is the impact, whether in potency, whether it's contamination, whether it's foreign particulate matter, degree to which the product remains unused in the market, how much is still in the pharmacies, distributors, which is still unused, or in the patients, probably already being sold, and continued availability of the essential product. Sometimes the product can be in very short supply. So if FDA just recalls everything, then possibly there can be a shortage. So all these factors are taken into consideration before FDA decides or directs the manufacturer, the firm, for taking forward the recall. The FDA will review the adequacy of the proposed recall strategy developed by the recalling firm and recommend the changes as appropriate, taken into consideration all of them. So I've taken this from ECFR guidelines, which is also published across in the public domain. Elements of recall. Now it will also impact, or depending upon the depth of the recall, public warning and effectiveness check. In the depth of the recall, normally the consumer or user level, which may vary with the product, including any intermediate, wholesale or retail level, how much are available. Retail level, including any intermediate, wholesale. So at different levels, wholesaler, retailer, consumers, how much is the volume of the product which is already there in the market. So that depth, how much the recall has to be done from how many centers, how many sites, how many countries, that is taken into consideration. Public warning is also being issued so that the product recall presents a serious hazard to the health, like we saw in morphine extended release tablet. It is reserved for urgent situations where the recalled product may appear inadequate. For example, there's a shortage. The FDA, in consultation with the recalling firm, will ordinarily issue such publicity. They will announce that there is a safety hazard, there's a concern, or how is the drug recall to be immediate basis, or what is the time frame to be done across there. Effectiveness check. The purpose of the effectiveness check is to verify that all the consignees at the recall depth, they have received the notification about the recall, and the method for contacting the consignees has been accomplished either by personal visits, telephone calls, letters, combined media publications, all taken into consolidation together. FDA requested. Now there are two kinds of recalls. Either the FDA can request for a recall, or the firm can take care of the voluntary recall. If the FDA calls for a recall, they can ask the firm to initiate a recall based on the following parameters. Product that has been distributed presents a risk of illness or injury to the consumer. The firm has not initiated a recall of the product. Now in this case, they can immediately call or request for a recall, or the agency action is necessary to protect the public health and welfare. Like it can cause serious consequences like death or adverse events. The commissioner or his designee will notify the firm of this determination need to begin immediately a recall for the product. Such notification can be by letter, can be by phone calls, communications. Different means are being followed across there for that. Then the second kind of recall, which the firm can initiate the recall on their own, not based on the FDA's recommendation. They can also decide to have because they know the violation or they know the out of specification results, they can remove or correct a distributed product from the market. They will identify the product involved, the reason for removal of and the correction. They would immediately do a cross. Possibly the deficiency is discovered. They will evaluate the risk for the firm that themselves for such products and the time span they have taken for production, the total amount of products which are in the distribution channels, and the distribution information if required, proposed strategy for conducting a recall that will be done by the firm themselves. Use a pointer, and name and telephone number of the firm in case they need to be contacted by the patients or by the distributors. The FDA will review the information submitted. Whatever the firm provides this information, the FDA will review. The firm may decide to recall a product when informed by the FDA as per the violation, or the firm may initiate removal with consultation with the FDA when the reason for removal or correction is not obvious or not clearly understood. So these are some of the technical terms which are given in the guidelines, maybe just to make you aware. Then the public notification has to be done for a recall by FDA, which I just told across there. It can be done by different means, by publications, by telephonic calls, letters, newspapers. What is a recall status report? Now, this is important again. A recall has been initiated, triggered off either by the firm or by the FDA. Then the recalling firm is requested to submit a periodic recall status report, which is very important. This report interval is normally between 2 to 4 weeks. For example, FDC or DRL, they have to submit a periodic report. What is the status or what is the summary of their recall? How many products have been recalled? Where are they in the channels? How many have been disposed of? What's the strategic plan? So recurrently, they have to update the FDA using the recall status reports. This report should contain the number of consignees notified for the recall, number of consignees responded to the call for the recall, and number of consignees who did not respond, the number of products returned by each consignee, number of results of effectiveness check that were made, and the time frame for the completion of the entire recall procedure. So all these things are summarized into the recall status report, and then will discontinue of the product or the recall can be terminated when all the action plans or the action items are completed by the firm and from the FDA side. Now let's do analysis part. Too much of theory, recall strategy. So based on the database I've gone through the database from year 2012 to 2023, almost more than 11 years. In the FDA database, I found 15,710 observations spanning in this 11 years. As I told you, the most common reason which I found was obviously some of them were sterility issues, inadequate compliance with the current CGMP, which was the second most one. And in the CGMP, basically the type of violations were like process controls, inadequate storage, manufacturing, nitrosamines, stability related issues. And then also there were some, out of specification related recalls also. So if I categorize those 15,000 plus recalls into class 1, class 2, and class 3, around 1,500 plus were in the class 1, which are very severe. 12,000 plus were in the class 2, which is medium in severity, and 1,500 were in the class 3. So you find the major chunk is coming around in the class 2 recalls. This is a screenshot of the summary of the 15,710 recalls in this, and you find that sterility, as per our polls, which we just saw, the maximum, the leading top cause was around 5,700 plus for based on the sterility. The next was 3,000 plus for CGMP. OS was contributing around 2,000 plus, and subsequently contamination and labeling were coming around 1,700 and 1,200. And there were some others also like packaging, adverse events, marketing, miscellaneous, which were the minor ones in the contribution. Now, if I do the analysis of the, with the FDA recalls for the major reasons, obviously we can see across here again, the sterility at the bottom of the table is the highest one. And this is a year-wise distribution, please understand, 2012 to 2023. So you see how many sterility related, even 1,100 in 1 year, 800 in the subsequent years. And similarly, the next reason, the topmost was CGMP. If you look at the CGMP, it has been found to increase in recent years, probably, 2018 to 2023 in this bracket. Then if I look at the auto specifications, it is randomly distributed. It was peak at 2016 and somewhere in 2018, but now it's around close to 200 or below 200. And obviously labeling and contamination are also contributing. When you found labeling was very high in 2014, but contamination was highest in again 2015 and 2019. So this is just to give a year-wise distribution with respect to the root cause of the drug recalls as per the FDA database. So I'm trying to do an analytical, analysis of the database so that all of us understand what are the major causes, which year, which reasons led to the major recalls across for this approved products in the markets. Again, lunch session. So let's take a poll time. Now, what are the major factors for quality control, laboratory related reasons for out of specification drug recalls? There can be multiple reasons for the QC related OS. Some of the options are subpotent, impurities, dissolution, stability, failed specifications, defective delivery systems, all of the above. So you have to select either A, B, or C as per the poll, which you feel is the right answer for a QC lab related out of specification based drug recalls.
Hello.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so for this poll, we have 6 options. And in case if anybody wants to opt for all of the above, we had a limitation where 6 options can only be accommodated. So if you have to choose all of the above, you all can mention it in the comment section. I will, take it up from there and update Dr. Parminder.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but take into consideration if they're all QC related, so which factors can contribute to QC related out of specification results or drug recalls based on that. So if you feel all the options are there, you can choose for, as Abhay rightly said, for all of the above as option also in the comment box here.
But I can see so far, people have, it's mostly, people are choosing multiple options. So there's a tie between dissolution and stability. I can see 22% vote is given for that. 19% it's somewhere around impurities. And yes. So I'll just take 30 seconds more and, later on we can close the poll and give you the final result. Nobody has put anything in the chat option. I believe people don't have the option of choosing. They don't want to choose all of the above, I see, it seems. Defective delivery system has got no vote so far. It's on 0. I think I should be giving more 10 seconds and then I'll be closing this. Guys, please vote quickly so that we get the right results. Yeah, I think most of the people have already voted. Yeah, perfect. I'm closing the poll, and Dr. Parminder, the final results are subpotent has got 12%, impurities has got 21.95%, dissolution is at 19.51%, stability is at 21.95%, failed specification is at 24.39. That is the maximum vote. And like I said, defective delivery system has got no vote. So I think people have chosen somewhere around, it is a very close competition between impurities, stability, and failed specifications.
Okay, got it. Thanks, audience, for this. Yes, you are close to it. These are the major contributing factors. But if you ask me, based on the FDA database, all of these 6 contributing factors, so the actual correct answers would be all of the above, starting from subpotency, impurity, dissolution, stability, failed specs, defective delivery. All of them contribute actually in the FDA database into the OS-based drug recalls. So don't get disappointed. You are very close. But yes, I agree with you that impurities, dissolution, stability, and failed specs are the major categories out of these 6 ones. But yes, overall, all the 6 in the bucket have been contributing to the drug recalls based on the QC-based OS. Okay, moving on. So here you see a snapshot across here. Then you can see the category-wise also. So you can see subpotent, superpotent becoming 31, impurities 25, dissolution 14, and then next field specifications, then minor contribution coming from stability and effective delivery system is the minimal one. So this is how the distribution there across in the FDA database, on the actual drug recalls for last 11 plus years in the out of specification based drug recalls from the form. Apart from that, so these are subcategories for drug recalls. Labeling mix-up has also been contributed, which I said, for example, in the past examples. So label mix-ups contributed 67%. Then incorrect missing or expiry date was 19 plus percent. Then labeling errors, incorrect information, and others contributing to the rest. Coming here to the contamination, which can be either chemical contamination, microbial contamination, cross-contamination. So chemical contamination was a major one, and cross-contamination was the second major one, which was total cumulative costing around taking to 74% and above. And presence of foreign matters was around, the minimum around 7.8%. On the right-hand side, you see sterility. So lack of assurance of sterility and non-sterility, obviously, they were the major ones. Then few others were like minor ones were leakage, improper sealing, and the preservative efficacy test. So the OS from the QC related ones is contributing from all of this coming together as per the FDA database, and this is the distribution as per the 15,710 base recalls from the US FDA database. Now, which are the top 525 most recalled pharmaceutical firms? So these are the number of recalls which have been done across here. So you'll be surprised that some of the US-based companies or organizations have been topping the list because major audits or recalls have been happening across at US and Canada, which I'll show in the subsequent slides. But coming to the Indian organizations or pharmaceutical companies, we find that DRL had around 146 recalls since 2012. Lupin had 107. Sun Pharmaceutical has around 107. So these are just the top 25. The list is, is quite huge one. So I cannot cover all the organizations. So just to give you a flavor that one of the organization had around 538, recalls, which was a very small company in US based, but you have similar ones find across the globe. But the Indian organizations are still well placed as compared to them. If I look at the global map, country-wise drug recalls, how many firms in different organizations or different countries, have gone through a drug recall? So if I go to the recall firm counts, how many organizations have called for a recall in US, the count is more than 15,351. So this is a major chunk coming from US big major. The audits are very, very, very frequent. There are random audits coming from US FDA and recalls happening, and some small organizations are also there. Canada is the second one. In the numbers, around 560 organizations or firms have counted for that. India stands around 156 because India is the pharmacy for the world, obviously. But still, we are well placed across with 156 organizations coming from India. And then comes China, Mexico, Jordan, and European markets and other markets also. Just for information purpose, I've given the reference for this database. But this is, you can understand that 94% of the FDA drug recalls have been observed in organizations which are placed in US, and remaining 4% from Canada, and the rest ones are coming from the rest of the world. What is FDA recall status? So which have been completed, which have been ongoing, which have been terminated. So let's read the definitions first, then we'll understand the matrix on the left-hand side. So ongoing recall means that the process of taking the necessary safety precautions by FDA is still ongoing. It is not yet completed. So if you see there across, the purple lines are the ones year-wise distribution from 2012 to 24 till June 2024. These ones are which are already the ongoing recalls. Then completed recalls that reaches the point where the firm has retrieved and captured all the outstanding product by the products corrections advised by FDA. So these have been recovered or retrieved. So these are coming from the light purple ones. You see, some of the years, these numbers have really been significantly done across. And terminated recalls, the yellow ones, the recalls where the FDA has determined all possible reasonable efforts have been made to remove corrective actions to do the best of their ability. So this is where the recall is closed and terminated. They are satisfied with the actions taken by the organizations, firms, and the FDA action point and the effectiveness check has been done. So you see that the terminated ones are coming from the previous years. In the recent years, they are still to be, reaching that stage. So this is just to understand, get a flavor of it, how the recall at different stages of the life cycle happens across from ongoing to completed to termination part. Break again. Digital detox. This is a nature mountain hike which I covered across 3,422 meters, friends. You can see an ocean of clouds there across. I love mountain trekking. Yes, a part of it. I'm adventurous for that. And this is just a natural click with a 360-degree view. When you reach the top, you have, amazing view there across. And so many people taking pictures for that. So just to share across with all of you. Oh, now, what are the approaches to minimize the drug recalls? This is very important because we have seen what drug recalls are, how many the numbers are, the statistical evaluation. Now how to minimize that? The information is essential while going through the recall process. Companies or organization must ascertain which batches are affected and the main reasons for the recall as soon as possible. So the root cause should be identified, the corrective action strategy, the preventive action strategy should be put in place. It is imperative to invest in the people essential to creating the products, whether it's a manufacturing, whether it's quality control. So companies ensure that staff are properly trained, significant number for the manufacturing products that they do, and how they can minimize the error which are detrimental for the people's life. Also, the organization takes into consideration building a culture around the people who produce and release, especially the QC, quality control, the goods by spending more time with them for encouraging, building a quality culture around it. And obviously, I will take into consideration the knowledge transfer model, which is my next presentation after this one. I will take into more details of how it will minimize the risk for drug recalls basing into all these considerations. So just look forward to this session also. Okay, what are the tools which organization can look into for analyzing the drug recalls or evaluating the drug recalls? So the 5 whys is one of the tools. Some of the tools have been taken up in the morning, FMEA by Dr. Manish and Dr. Manoj. So the 5 why tools, the problem statement is here. For example, morphine has a label mix-up. 30 milligram, 60 milligram has a label mix-up. Why it is happened? Symptom. Therefore, it happens. So this is, you are asking a question, you are answering that question, then from that question, you are asking another question. So 5 times when you ask the question, you find a solution. This is how the problem statement, then you find out the root cause after this 5 whys technique. I'll give you an example for this just to simplify to understand this part. For example, there's a drug recall because of a microbial contamination observed. So the first question is, why was the drug recalled? The answer is because the drug batch was contaminated with bacteria. As simple as that, a simple answer. Question number 2, second why. Why was the drug batch contaminated with bacteria? Because the manufacturing equipment wasn't cleaned and sanitized properly. Valid answer. Third why, third question. Why wasn't the equipment cleaned and sanitized? Because the cleaning and sanitation procedure were not followed by the manufacturing staff. Valid. Fourth why weren't the cleaning and sanitation procedures followed? Because the staff didn't have adequate training or weren't aware of the importance of thorough cleaning and sanitization. Fifth why didn't the staff have adequate training or awareness? Because the pharmaceutical company did not invest enough in the training programs for the manufacturing staff, or the existing programs were not effective, like the trainings were not really effective. So you see that from 5 whys, you are getting the root cause, and finally the root cause is inadequate training and awareness of the importance of cleaning and sanitization, leading to contaminated drug product and ultimately a recall. So this is a simple tool which can be used for finding out the root cause, for evaluation part, for a drug recall, and obviously for your laboratory investigations also in day-to-day working. Whole time. Again, what are the 5 M's for a quality control laboratory related root cause analysis? There are different M's which are used in the QC controlled root cause analysis, or the fishbone diagram, if you are aware of, or Ishikawa diagram. So what are the 5 M's? Whole time. So there are 2 in the first box. You have to give me all the 5 M's. The second, third, and the fourth one, and the fifth one. So I hope the poll is visible on your screens. I'll pause for a while.
Yeah, Dr. Parminder, for this poll, since we need inputs where people have to manually mention some, comment.
Okay.
We,
So I can give an example to make it simplify. For example, man is the first M. For example, manpower or man is the first M. Then just to elaborate, maybe machine, you know. So you can think about subsequent M's which can lead to the root cause analysis, which can be the contributing factor for an OS results in the QC lab. So man and machine, I've given you two answers. The remaining three you can think about and putting it across in any of the boxes. So man and machine, there are another three M's coming across. And the last I will tell you a sixth one also maybe later on. So just randomly you can guess across. If you have done the root cause analysis or fishbone diagram for QC related out of specification results, it's very easy to identify them across the major categories for RCA. And in subsequent slides, I'll then take you through an RCA model of actual investigation happening in a lab and how these contributing M's have led to the root cause identification, therefore, yeah. So let me know if you have some guesses available or polls available. Man and machine, two answers I've already given across.
so far, people have started voting. Most of them have. It's almost a tie because 50% have voted for third, and almost 50% have voted for the fifth criteria. We are waiting for more votes, guys. Please, start voting so that we have better results.
And you have to tell me the name of the M also, maybe. Probably if you can identify those M's.
Yeah, Parminder ji, just there is gonna be a challenge wherein people won't be able to
Okay.
name anything on the poll. They can just
No
select the
worries.
criteria. Yeah.
Let me
Yeah,
then
okay.
take it forward to the next slide.
Just sorry to intervene about it. Requesting all the members that in case if you have something to type as well, you are typing, I can see that. If you can type in the chat box, that will be great. I'll just quickly show you, Parminder. So we have Anjali stating material and
Okay.
Shailesh stating method. And then we have Satya Chandra saying man-machine method, measure, and mellow. And then we have Paresh, machine method. Then we have Hari saying 5 M's are man, method, machine, material, mother, nature for RCA. And then Nalagorla Krishna is man, machine, method, material, mellow. So these are the answers that we have got, and you might be able to see something in the chat box as well. Some of the people are putting on in fact, like if you see Shika has put it on chat, men, machine, method, measure, material. So in a way, that means a lot of people have a thought process that with all the 5 names, and Deepak has mentioned material, method. So they might not be able to give you an answer on the poll, but let's just quickly see what is the answer on the poll as well. Abhay, if you can show.
Yeah.
Okay, can
I
you?
think the audience is on the right path, Let me know. I can go to the next slide with the answers.
Yes. So I will tell you the answers. The poll is ended for the audience now, and we have the answers here. So around 20% have chosen option one. I mean, wherein they have selected the first category. Around 10% have chosen the second category. Around 20% again is for third category, and for fourth one we have no votes here. It is 0, and almost 50% have opted for the fifth category. Yeah.
Okay.
And Guneet already highlighted about the answers which we got in the chat and the question options.
Right. So I think the audience has really performed really well. I really appreciate their skill sets. So they are perfectly on the bang there. So the typically 5 M's I start from man, material, machine, method, and mother nature, which is nothing but environment also. But another 6th M which I was talking about was measurement also. So if anybody has written measurement, that's not wrong. That's also correct. So in the current consideration, we actually take 6 M's into consideration, but conventionally we used to take only these 5 M's. Percentage wise, we'll probably go into details maybe subsequently. But yes, you are right in the polling. So congratulations, audience. You've done well. So moving on, let's look at a fishbone diagram for a contamination risk to the product. Now here you see, obviously the nomenclature might be slightly different. Personal means man, raw material means material, facility, process or method, training, mother nature, cleaning and sanitization is nothing but mother nature. So you see that ultimately your end product is a contaminated product which is getting recalled from the market. And lot of fish, when you see this fish, and these are the bones on the subsequent ones, and on the bones you have sub bones. So this is the kind of a fishbone diagram or a Ishikawa diagram which we built when we do an investigation study or a root cause analysis study for any laboratory investigation out of specification, out of trend, or any deviation management across in a GMP laboratory. So we find out all possible reasons, whether the training is a concern, whether the manpower is a concern, whether the raw materials, API, excipient is a concern, whether the facility, the HVAC, air quality, environment is a concern, the cleaning, sanitation procedures, process is a concern. So all this is taken into consideration or put across in the fishbone diagram to get the final or the most probable root cause for the contaminated product. So just to give a flavor of it, yes, I know you are aware of this model. So just to work on, I want to touch base on the 5Y models and the fishbone or the Ishikawa diagram model to find out the root cause analysis tool for finding out the root cause for OS or in the QC lab investigation. Okay, coming back to the recall effectiveness check, the purpose is to have the recall depth as per the strategic plan. The responsibility obviously lies with the recalling firm who's responsible for conducting the effectiveness check with the FDA support. And the level of the recall effectiveness check can be level A, which is 100% of the total consignee to be contacted. Level B, some percentage of the consignee, which is between 10 to 100. Level C is less than 10%, and level D is 2%, and level E is no effectiveness check is required. So the level of the recall strategy is defined or based upon the evaluation done by FDA and the firm. These different levels of the recall are being evaluated and implemented as a part of the effectiveness check for the recall, whether it's really effective or not. And the all product has been immediately recalled from market, and the consumers, retailers, pharmacies, distributors everywhere across. Termination of recall, I think we have already covered, so I'll not go through it again. Probably this is a reading material for all of you. In the interest of time, you can just go through it probably. Very important is that coding or barcoding of the material, which facilitates for identification of the finished product or the batch numbers in the market, is an important tool, obviously, basis which the products are getting recalled from the distribution channels. Break time, again a click of a island, a very remote island in Taiwan, and you see the ocean, you see two hearts, a good place and a very beautiful place. When the ocean recedes, you can actually see this two heart signs across from an aerial view on a beautiful landscape. So just to share across with you a nature island click, just to a digital detox again. Okay, learnings to minimize the drug recalls. Now this is important. Coming to the last part of the presentation, what are the preventive measures we can take across there? We can implement rigorous testing, establishing a comprehensive testing protocol covering all the product life cycle from material procurement to the final packaging. So all the QC, QA related checks are being ensured that whatever product goes into the market or the commercial ones are thoroughly going through a rigorous testing procedure and a quality and a QC control check. QC implements a clear quality control measures with regular process analysis to identify the potential issues early in the life cycle stage. So all the CAPA implementations based on the past failures in the labs, any OS, OTs, deviation management, those are clearly implemented to improve upon in the future so that there are no such repeat or recurrent failures coming from the quality control lab for the finished product which is released into the market and leading to drug recall. Documentation, very important, good documentation practices. Everybody maintains a detailed record of all records of the production, supplier certification, testing results, employee training. So GDP is an important aspect to have as a preventive measure to avoid or minimize the drug recalls. Effective communication, clear and efficient communication channels, which prevents some mislabeling or ensuring accurate information is shared across with the patients and healthcare providers. Now, second major category of minimizing the drug recall is risk mitigation plan. Doing a crisis management, develop a clear crisis management procedure to handle the potential drug recall scenarios based on the quality control, policies, probably from the organization, getting very prompt into action for the distribution, for the recalls of all the distributed product which is into the recall. Mock recalls. So organization conduct mock recalls and tabletop exercises to identify the gaps in the recall procedures and improve the response time. Because if it is related to the death or adverse event for the patients, Now the time is very critical. So mock recalls helps identify or prepares the organization to run the mock runs so that they can minimize the recall time period. End-to-end traceability. Track and trace solutions to monitor the product movement through the supply chain. So there is a track and trace solutions, digital barcoding available so that the risk is mitigated that all the comprehensive product is getting recalled from the shelves, from the pharmacies, distributors, and from the patients. The third one is post-recall actions. Now finding out the root cause, which you saw, Ishikawa diagram, fishbone, or 5 whys or FMEAs, all those tools can be taken into consideration to conduct the root cause analysis to understand the reason behind a recall, whether manufacturing, whether QC, whether QA, cross-contamination, raw materials. So all those 5 M's or 6 M's getting into action here. Process improvement. So review and update the recall procedures based on the lesson learned from the past. Again, a quality policy-based decision. Stakeholders engagement, which ensures that there is the open communication with all the stakeholders, including patients, healthcare providers, regulatory agencies, which is very critical. Fourth tool is technology solutions. So digital solutions are available to streamline the process, reduce the errors, improve the record management. So digitalization, we have seen a lot of digital platforms available across there. Lean manufacturing process, principles to be applied so that optimize the production process and minimize the risk of defect with a lean process management. Last but not the least, collaboration and partnership with the health professionals and with the regulatory agencies to ensure that the strong relationship with the regulatory agencies at FDA to ensure compliance and facilitate the communication during the recalls part. And there's a FDA MedWatch program also, which the healthcare professionals normally report any kind of adverse events or adverse events reported across due to administration of the drug product, whether in a hospital or at different sites and locations. So with this, I think I'm close to the end of the presentation. I have consolidated all comprehensively, the URLs and the references here across for the audience. They can go through these guidances in details. This presentation will be shared across there. And you can read across more in details if you're interested in the FDA guidances and ECFR guidances for the drug recalls. Thank you all. And that's all from my side for the session.
All right. Thank you so much, Parminder ji, for that lovely session. We can now move on to the next session, after which we will start with the Q&A. But there is a question which we can continue with as of now. So it's, what is defective delivery system in OOS? In OOS.
Good question, Shikha. So when we look into the outer specifications, it's not only the drug product like tablet capsules or injection which is the culprit. Sometimes the delivery system, like I said about the ophthalmic solution, the bottle, the nozzle, the meter dose inhalers, for example, the valve, the actuators, the dry powder inhalers, the rotahalers, for example. So if there is a defective delivery system, then your drug product or the dosage form will not be delivered to the patients. So when, for example, you saw about the timolol ophthalmic solution, the nozzle was not able to dispense timolol for the glaucoma patients. So the defective delivery system was leading to an out of specification results for timolol not getting dispensed out of there, failing in assay or dispensing failure. So defective container systems or closure systems can cause lot of failures or OS results in many formulations. So these devices are also to be tested across there for their delivery, for their effectiveness, not only in the initial release, but in stability and the shelf life also.
Thank you very much, Parminder. Thank you very much. We do have another question as well for you. But before that, I must say that the way you have taken short breaks in the session and put very beautiful pictures as well, that is very refreshing. And thank you very much for basing it on the theme of hashtag Eminence Digital Detox. We are promoting it. We are telling everybody to, as much as possible, to understand we cannot be away from the technology, but we need to know how, learn to take a break in between. Thank you very much for understanding and putting a press on that as well. Before we take one another question that we have from the audience, we also need to take your picture during the session. If you can just take off your PPT or your screen share for a short time, please.
Sure.
When you start your next PPT, we can start it again. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So the next question that we have is, can you share can you share an uncommon mistake in documentation practices?
Okay.
Something that we do not normally say.
Okay. There are so many examples I can share across you. The list is very, very long. For the good documentation practices, some of the common and uncommon mistakes is, for example, the procedure is not very well defined in the SOP. The lab notebook writing probably is not as per the standards. It's not online recording. The standard and the sample weights or the procedures for the sample preparation is not adequately defined in the documentation procedure. Then the training records for the end users like quality control or the manufacturing users, the training records, the job descriptions, the on the job training OGT, which is very, very important, which is FDA is nowadays asking for, is not available. So these are some of the major reasons which I found in the several 483 observations and some of the drug recall related products where the drug documentation practices or the GDP has led to these kind of drug recalls. So there are so many causes. I'm just naming few of the top 3 and 5 in my top of my mind. But starting from the batch manufacturing records, if they're inadequate, the lab notebook writing, the log books, the training records, the SOPs, your monograph, your specifications. So all these are not adequately documented or justified. Then this leads to a lot of common and uncommon observations with respect to drug recalls.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Parminder. Great. Okay. Thank you very much. And I guess we will have more questions for end of the evening